Hi everyone, back to basics this week. We're going to talk about shuffling. It seems that there are, I would say, three obvious ways of shuffling your tarot cards. Here's a standard size deck. It's Julian Paco's Hidden Message. And here's how I will do it. Okay. Split the pack in half, approximately. And there you go, quite nicely shuffled. You can do that a couple of times and then you really have randomized it. And you also notice that when I split the pack like that, okay, and then I do that, it means that half the pack become reversed. So if you're working with reversals, that's pretty good randomization. There is another way, which people sometimes use when they're a bit sort of scared of tarot cards and don't want to damage them. I did this for many years because I was trying to protect my cards. And tarot cards, you know, they are lovely things, but they need to be used, and it doesn't really matter if they get a bit ragged. This is called overhand shuffling. The first one was called RIFFLE shuffling. And I'm afraid to say that I read online, so I guess it has to be true, or maybe in a book, I read that overhand shuffling, doing this, or just doing this, is about 10,000 times less efficient at randomizing the cards than RIFFLE shuffling. So, I mean, for me, it's all about randomizing the card order, isn't it? And you really want it to be a lovely random fall of cards on the table. So in between the two, there is a thing called swooshing, and I'll demonstrate this to you with a smaller deck. Here we have a mini. And swooshing, again, sometimes your friends who come round for a tarot reading will swoosh, won't they? Because they're a bit worried about RIFFLE shuffling, and they quite sensibly don't think that overhand shuffling is going to make much of a difference. And so that's swooshing. It's known as swooshing. It's a good word. And according to this clever mathematician who I found online, swooshing is like in between RIFFLE shuffling and overhand shuffling in terms of efficiency. So it's sort of semi-efficient in terms of randomizing. But what tends to happen is this. Once you've swooshed, you have to get them to behave, don't you? And they don't always behave, and sometimes they kind of like get jammed against each other. So I think this is probably the most harmful way of shuffling. And also, if they get into a real jam, sometimes they just like fly across the table and end up on the floor. So swooshing is charming, but I don't think it's the best thing. Now, clearly the challenge comes when you have, you know, some monstrous deck like that. And you think, well, how am I going to shuffle these? Which method am I going to use? Well, actually, it doesn't really matter which method you use because they're all going to be quite difficult. This is the Oculi Occultati tarot, and they're gorgeous, but they're absolutely massive. Look, that's my hand. And I'm a gentleman, so I have fairly big hands. So, I mean, actually, look. Can't fit it in the picture. I mean, overhand shuffling is really going to challenge you, and they're probably going to fly across the table. If you want to start swooshing, you're going to need an entire, you know, floor to do that. So you're back to RIFFLE shuffling, aren't you, really? And actually, you know, you can do it. Like they say in the Diet Coke advertisement. You can do it. It's really just a matter of being brave and practicing. Oops, more or less got it. Are they locked in? Yes, they're in. Not quite as good as with a smaller deck, but I am definitely shuffling, and I can do that 2 or 3 times. So, ladies and gentlemen, riffle shuffling. And I'll show you a little bit of technique. And you know, if you've been reading tarot cards for 10 years, you know all this already. But if you're just starting out and you're a bit bewildered, bewitched, bothered, and bewildered, these little tips from an old taroter might help. So split it roughly in 2. In fact, split it as well as you can split it. Okay. Then do this. Now look, you're going to look at my thumb here. You're going to need a slight angle, okay? An angle. You do that, don't you? I'll exaggerate it. You do that so that you can get them to riffle. And you need to do that on both sides. Okay, so look, with this hand I get that angle, and with this hand I get that angle. Okay, just take a deep breath. It's worth practicing. So I'm angling them, I go down, and I riffle shuffle. Now, as I riffle shuffle, I push them towards each other. Otherwise, the last cards will sort of will fail. So look, I'm going to angle, I'm going to shuffle them, I'm going to push them together. Okay. Then hold them in place and carefully pick up both packs. Let them drop, let them go loose, and push. And there you are, successfully shuffled cards. While I'm here, I'd like to say something. And what I want to say is this. There are various different sizes of tarot cards, aren't there? That standard tarot size, that is what's called bridge size, approximately. People slightly cheat the dimensions a bit, don't they, in terms of width. But this is just an approximation. This is mini. And then, as we've seen, occasionally you get wonderful sort of megalomaniac decks, which just hardly fit into the picture there, okay? Okay, so there's 4 different sizes. Okay, that is the easiest size for shuffling, I think, possibly. It's really handy. These, clearly, it's a big challenge, and you just have to live with it. They're worth it. I think huge cards like this are for special occasions, and you know, if you want to work with cards like that, you have to put in some extra work. But for day-to-day reading, these are best for shuffling. I actually enjoy bridge-sized tarot cards very much because they take up less space on the table, less space in your handbag. They're slightly more difficult to shuffle because you've got less room for manoeuvre when you push them in. You know, you really have to push them towards each other quite hard there. And these are kind of plasticky ones, so you can't get them up off the table either. But, you know, it works. And then these minis are very difficult, I think, to shuffle. I'll show you why. Because now, because there's such a small block of bits of card there, there's not a lot of room for flexibility. Look, that was not very good, was it? It's not really what you'd expect of Robert Farrah's tea and Tara. It's a bit all over the place. I'll try and do another one. I'll try and make it even worse. Here we go. It's fiddly, isn't it? And they tend to fly off the table. Don't take them camping, these, because they'll fly off your little improvised campsite table and fly into the undergrowth. It's not particularly easy, is it? Not particularly easy. But yeah, I think when the chips are down, just practice your riffle shuffling. I mean, I've had certain packs of cards for decades, and they get a bit ragged, they get a bit old, but old is loved. and don't be frightened of abusing them a little bit. I'm sure you'll have plenty of comments in the comments section because this is such a controversial subject, how to shuffle tarot cards. But I always welcome a little bit of controversy. So let me know what you think, and I'll see you next week. Bye. If you've enjoyed this video, you might like to consider subscribing to my channel. It makes a difference. Thank you.